listen, Adaeze replied sadly. Father is determined to secure peace with Obododike. He says our people have suffered enough wars. If a marriage will bind the two kingdoms, he won't take no for an answer, even from me. He would rather see the land burn than be disobeyed or dishonored. Chinyere felt a chill at those words. She knew King Odom's temper and pride. Princess Adaeze stood at the window of her hut within the royal palace, gazing out at the awakening kingdom of Ozochi. The dawn sun painted the sky orange and gold, illuminating the thatched roofs of the village beyond the palace walls. She could see smoke rising from early morning cooking fires and hear the distant crawl of a rooster. It was a peaceful morning, yet Adaeze's heart felt anything but calm. Adaeze was the only daughter of King Odum of Ozochi. Her name Adaeze meant daughter of the king, and she truly was the cherished princess of the land. She was young and kind-hearted, with bright eyes that always observed the world beyond the palace with longing. Though she wore fine royal garments, a wrapper of rich blue clothes around her waist, and a lighter cloth across her shoulders, decorated with tiny shells. She often wondered what it would be like to dress plainly and walk freely among the people. That morning, Adaeze's nurse and companion, an older woman named Chinyere, entered her chambers carrying a wooden tray. On the tray were Adaeze's breakfast, boiled yam and sliced of roasted plantain with a little dish of spiced vegetable soup. There was also a wooden cup of warm palm wine, a sweet drink from the sap of the palm tree. It was a simple meal, but prepared with care for the princess. "Good morning, my princess," Chinyere greeted softly as she set the tray down on a low table. She bowed her head respectfully. Adaeze smiled at her. Even though Adaeze was royalty, she always treated her attendants kindly. "Good morning, Chinyere," Adaeze replied, sitting on a woven mat by the table. "Thank you. This looks delicious." Adaeze picked up a yam piece and ate slowly. Though her mind was elsewhere, Chinyere noticed the faraway look in the princess's eyes. "Today is the New Yam Festival, is it not?" Chinyere asked gently. In Ozochi, the New Yam Festival was one of the biggest celebrations of the year. It marked the time of harvest, when the first yams of the season were offered in thanks to the gods and ancestors. There will be feasting, dancing, and masquerades in the village square. Adaeze would be expected to attend by her father's side, dressed in her finest attire, to present yams and greet the people. "Yes, it is," Adaeze said. She tried to smile, but it wavered. "I should be happy. It is a day of joy for the kingdom." She set down the half-eaten piece of yam. "But I feel worried." Chinyere sat down beside her. She was not just a servant. She had cared for Adaeze since the princess was a baby and loved her like her own child. "What troubles you, my princess?" she asked. Adaeze hesitated. She trusted Chinyere, but the thoughts in her heart were secret and heavy. "Father has been talking about our neighboring kingdom again," she finally admitted quietly. "He says the peace between our kingdom and the kingdom of Obododike is fragile. You know how they have fought in the past. He wants to make sure the peace lasts by arranging a marriage for me." She spoke the last words in a near whisper. Chinyere's eyes widened slightly. "A marriage? With whom, my princess?" she asked, though she could guess the answer. Adaeze sighed softly, fidgeting with the edge of her cloth. with Prince Ifeanyi of Obododike, the son of their king, she replied. Father hasn't formally announced it yet, but I overheard him speaking with his council of elders. They plan to announce the betrothal soon, perhaps even during the festival today, when envoys from Obododike are here. Adaeze's voice trembled slightly. Chinyere reached out and gently took Adaeze's hand. Prince Ifeanyi, I see. An alliance through marriage to end the wars for good. The older woman's voice was calm, but her eyes were full of sympathy. He is said to be a fine young man, is he not? Perhaps. He may be fine, Adaeze interrupted, her tone polite but firm. But I do not know him, and more importantly, I do not love him. Adaeze looked down at her hand. Her heart pounded just saying those words aloud. Love. Chinyere squeezed her hand gently, encouraging her to continue. My heart, it already belongs to someone else. Adaeze's cheeks warmed as she confided this secret. Chinyere gasped very softly in surprise. Someone else? Who, my princess? Who has caught your heart? She asked. Adaeze bit her lip. She had told no one of this secret before. It's Obinna, she said at last in a whisper. The very name made her smile shyly. Obinna, the son of Dike. She paused, knowing this description would reveal much. Dike was a man who had once been a slave in King Odom's household long ago and was banished from the kingdom for reasons only the elders fully knew. Adaeze had only had bits and pieces. That Dike had been accused of some wrongdoing and cast out, forced to live beyond the borders of Uzochi. Some said Dike was innocent and had been punished unfairly, but no one dared question the king's decision at the time. Chinyere's eyes filled with worry now. She knew of Dike's story. His son? Or how did he even meet Obinna, my princess? Has he been in the village? Adaeze nodded and managed a small smile as she recounted softly. I met him by the old Udala tree, outside the palace walls, about a moon ago. I sometimes sneak out of the palace in a simple dress, to walk among the people and feel like an ordinary girl for a little while. Adaeze's eyes lit up as she remembered. One evening, I slipped away with just a scarf over my hair. I walked to the outskirts of the market after sunset, when there were only a few villagers packing up their wares. I followed their path I hadn't taken before, one that led towards the forest and farms. That's when I saw a young man under the Udala tree, trying to knock down the ripe fruit with a long stick. Obinna, Chinyere guessed with a gentle smile, hearing the fondness in Adaeze's voice. Yes, Adaeze giggled quietly. He was so focused on reaching the fruits that he didn't notice me at first. I watched him jump and swing the stick. There was a little goat next to him, bleating impatiently each time he missed. It was such a funny and sweet scene that I couldn't help but laugh. That startled him, and he turned around quickly. When he saw me, he blushed with embarrassment. He told me later he thought I was a forest spirit at first, coming out from the trees. Adaeze smiled widely at the memory. I helped him gather some rocks, and together we managed to bring down several Udala fruits. He shared them with me. We sat under the tree, eating the sweet orange flesh of the fruit and talking until the moon rose high. Adaeze paused, her eyes shining. I did not tell him I was the princess that night. I just said I was Ada. He showed me the path to safely return to the main road after it got dark. I couldn't stop thinking about him after that day. He was gentle and kind, and he spoke to me like I was just a friend, not someone apart. For the first time, I felt truly seen for who I am inside, not just as a princess in fine clothes. Oh, Adaeze, Chinyere whispered, sharing the girl's joy but also fearing for her. And you saw him again after that? Adaeze nodded. Yes, we met many times since then, always in secret. Sometimes by the Odala tree, sometimes by the riverbank at dusk. I always dress simply as Ada. He calls me Ada, and I call him Obi. He tells me stories about animals in the forest and mimics their sounds to cheer me up. He even carved a small wooden doll for me. He's very good with carving wood. He learned from his father. Chinyere listened, and she could see how happy Adaeze was when speaking of Obinna. But she also knew the dangers. A prince from a rival kingdom was one thing. A king might accept such a marriage for peace, but a banished slave son, King Odun would never allow his only daughter to marry so far beneath her station. It would be a great scandal, and worse, the king's fury would be immense. My princess, Chinyere said carefully, worry etched on her face. Your father, does he know of Obinna? Does anyone know? Adaeze quickly shook her head. No, no one knows except you now. I have been so careful. I know father would never approve. He's so proud and stubborn. He talks always of alliances and honor. He expects me to do exactly as he says, especially if it concerns the kingdom. And Obinna, she took a deep breath. Obinna told me that if my father knew who he was, he might be in danger. So we both agreed to keep our meetings very secret. We even stopped meeting in the daytime to avoid being seen. We only meet in the twilight hours when fewer people are about. Chinyere's hands trembled a little as she held Adaeze's. This is very dangerous, Ada. I won't lie to you. If King Odum finds out. She didn't finish the sentence, but Adaeze understood. I know, Adaeze answered quietly. A single tear rolled down her cheek. I know it's dangerous. I know father would never allow it, but I love Obinna. Chinyere, I love him. I truly love him. And he loves me. We promised each other. She hesitated. Promise each other what, child? Chinyere prompted softly, wiping Adaeze's tear with the edge of her headscarf. We promised that one day we would find a way to be together, Adaeze said, her voice both hopeful and afraid. Even if everything is against us, she lifted her eyes to the morning sun outside. But now, with this arranged marriage to Prince Ifeanyi, I feel like the walls are closing in. I don't know what to do. I feel like a bird in a cage that is growing smaller by the day. Chinyere sighed and placed a comforting arm around Adaeze's shoulder. Oh, my dear princess, this is such a heavy burden for a young heart. Perhaps you should talk to your father before it goes too far. Tell him you are not ready for marriage yet. He won't listen, Adaeze replied sadly. Father is determined to secure peace with Obododike. He says our people have suffered enough wars. If a marriage will bind the two kingdoms, he won't take no for an answer, even from me. He would rather see the land born than be disobeyed or dishonored. Chinyere felt a chill at those words. She knew King Odum's temper and pride. He was a good king in many ways, brave and protective of his kingdom, but he was also harsh and unyielding. Then, you must be very careful, Adaeze, she warned gently. Today at the festival, the envoys from Obododike will be here. You will have to meet Prince Ifeanyi properly if the announcement is made. Your father will watch you like a hawk. You must guard your heart and your expressions. If anyone suspects that your heart is elsewhere, I understand, Adaeze said, straightening and wiping her face. She knew Chinyere was right. Today would be difficult. She would have to smile and play the role of a dutiful daughter, even as her heart ached. Thank you, Chinyere, for listening and understanding. I'm so glad I have to talk to you. She hugged the older woman, who hugged her back gently. Always, my princess. Chinyere said kindly. I will always be here for you. She stood up. Now, let us prepare for the festival. You should wear your finest dress and beads. It will not do to appear sad before the people. Perhaps the gods will be kind and show a path through these troubles. Adaeze took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, maybe the gods will show a sign, she whispered. In her heart, she silently prayed to the ancestors and to any gods who might be listening. Please, help me find a way to follow my heart without bringing ruin to my people. Adaeze rose to get ready, determined to face the New Yam Festival day with hope and courage, even as uncertainty fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. By midday, the village of Uzochi was alive with celebration. Bright cloth banners fluttered from huts and stalls around the great village square. The air was filled with the cheerful sound of drums, flutes, and seed-filled rattles. Children ran about excitedly, and the aroma of roasting yam, spicy soup, and grilled fish drifted through the air, making everyone's mouth water. At the center of the square, under a large ancient Iroko tree, a raised platform had been built for the royal family and important guests. There sat King Odum himself on a wooden throne carved with the figure of a roaring lion. The king was a tall, imposing man with broad shoulders and a stern face. He wore a richly woven crimson robe, and around his neck hung heavy coral beads that glistened in the sun. A fine crown of beads sat upon his head, and eagle feathers jutted proudly from it, symbolizing his status and courage. Queen Nneka, Adaeze's mother, sat to his right, a graceful woman in a deep green wrapper with gold embroidery. Her wrist and neck were adorned with beads as well, and a light shawl covered her head modestly. Adaeze sat to her father's left on a smaller throne-like seat. She was dressed in a beautiful outfit chosen for the day, a flowing dress made of hand-woven fabric dyed bright blue and patterned with triangles. Over her shoulders, she wore a short cape of velvet. Around her forehead, she had a band of coral beads, and more coral bead necklace layered on her neck. Tiny brass bells were tied around her ankles so that they jingled when she moved. To the people below, she looked every bit the radiant princess. Adaeze smiled and waved gently to villagers who looked up and cheered at the sight of their beloved princess. Outwardly, she appeared composed and happy, but inside, her heart was racing as she scanned the crowd for a familiar face. Somewhere among the dancers, drummers, and spectators, Obinna might be there. Adaeze had no way of knowing if he could come. After all, as the son of a banished man, he was technically not allowed to live in Uzochi. But Obinna often slipped into the village quietly to trade or to see friends, and in the anonymity of a festival crowd, perhaps he could hide in plain sight. Adaeze hoped desperately to catch a glimpse of him. She yearned to share a smile, however brief, to give her strength. King Odum raised a hand, and the drumming quieted. The festival was about to formally begin. An elder from the king's council brought forth a large woven basket filled with the finest yams harvested that season. As tradition dictated, the king would offer the first yam to the gods and ancestors in gratitude for a good harvest, and then he and his family would test the new yam, symbolizing the blessing over the food for everyone. A hush fell as King Odum stood. In a strong voice, he spoke the traditional words of thanks. We thank the great God in the sky and Allah, the earth goddess, for blessing our land with fertile soil and good rains. We honor our ancestors, whose spirits watch over our great kingdom of Uzochi. May this new yam bring prosperity and strength to our people. and may peace reign in our time. Adaeze and Queen Nneka also stood respectfully as he spoke. The king then took one large yam tuber from the basket, raised it up for all to see, and handed it to the elder. The elder skillfully cut the yam into pieces and roasted it quietly over a small ceremonial fire. He offered the first slice back to the king on a wooden platter. King Odum lifted the slice of roasted yam to his lips and ate it. The crowd erupted into cheers and clapping. The harvest was officially blessed. The king smiled a rare broad smile and nodded. He then offered slices to Queen Nneka and to Adaeze. Adaeze took her piece and ate it, the warm, earthy taste of yam filling her mouth. She too smiled and raised her hands in acknowledgement of the cheering villagers. Let the festival begin, King Odum declared. The drummers immediately struck up a lively beat on their talking drums and the big log drum. Dancers in colorful attire flooded the open space, moving in rhythm. Adaeze clapped along politely, trying to enjoy the moment. The women dancers wore bright wrappers with beads at their waist and clattered as they danced. The men performed energetic wrestling demonstrations in the far corner of the square, showing off feats of strength to impress the crowd. Laughter and excitement filled the air. After some performances, it was time for the masquerade, one of the most anticipated parts of the festival. Several masqueraders emerged, wearing elaborate costumes and masks. One wore a fearsome wooden mask with horns, painted in black and white, representing a powerful forest spirit. He leaped and spun to the drums, entertaining and also slightly scaring the children who shrieked in delight and fear. Another masquerader was dressed as Adamma, a masquerade depicting a beautiful maiden spirit, with a colorful dress and graceful dance moves. The crowd whooped as Adamma danced, mimicking a woman's gentle steps. Adaeze forgot her worries as she watched the masquerade. She knew these masked figures were actually men from the village, but according to custom, everyone treated them as spirits from the other world. No one would dare touch a masquerade or speak to it as if it were a human. They were given respect and a wide berth as they performed. The idea that a spirit might be walking among them gave the festival an air of magic. As Adamma danced closer to the royal platform, the masquerade maiden bowed playfully before the king, then twirled before Adaeze and the queen. Adaeze laughed softly and tossed a few cowrie shells, small shells used as money or decoration, towards Adamma as a token of appreciation, as was the custom. The masked dancer caught them and held them up as if they were precious gifts, playing to the crowd's amusement. Behind Adamma, another masquerade appeared and drew Adaeze's attention strongly. It was tall and imposing, with a very large mask that towered above the performer's head, almost like a small house with many carved figures on it. The mask was intricately decorated with bright paint and clothes. Adaeze recognized this as the Ijele masquerade, known as the king of masquerades. Ijele only came out for the most important celebrations. The crowd murmured in awe and delight on seeing it. The Ijele masquerade's presence was significant, a symbol of great honor for the festival. It moved slowly and regally as two assistants guided it. As it passed, Adaeze felt a strange chill and wonder. The Ijele embodied the spirit of many ancestors together, people said, and it symbolized the unity and strength of the community. She watched intently. At one point, the Ijele turned its massive face towards the royal platform and paused. The eye holes of the mask seemed to stare right at Adaeze. She couldn't see the performer's eyes, of course, but for a moment, she felt as if something beyond the performer, perhaps an ancestor spirit, truly saw into her heart. It was a brief mystical moment, and Adaeze caught her breath. Just then, She thought she heard a whisper, a deep voice echoing within her mind saying, "Follow your heart, daughter of the king." Adaeze started and glanced around. No one else seemed to react. The festival noise was loud, and it was likely her mind playing tricks on her. Still, the words made her heart thump. Could it have been an ancestral spirit speaking through the masquerade, or was it her own hope speaking? She did not know. She turned to her mother, Queen Nneka, who had also been watching the Ijele. The queen caught Adaeze's eye and smiled gently, reaching over to squeeze her daughter's hand. Adaeze wondered if her mother somehow sensed her inner turmoil. Queen Nneka was a wise and soft-spoken woman, often a calming balance to King Odum's fearless nature. But even she might not be able to help if the king was set on his plans. As the masquerade moved on, there came a new event. King Odum motioned, and a royal herald stepped forward on the platform. The drums grew quiet again, and the villagers hushed one another, sensing something important was about to be said. The herald, an elderly woman with a loud, clear voice, announced, "People of Ozochi, we have guests from the kingdom of Obododike among us today." A polite but tense murmur spread through the crowd. Everyone knew Obododike had long been both rival and occasional ally. The relationship was complicated. As we celebrate our harvest, we also celebrate peace in our time. May I present Prince Ifeanyi of Obododike, who has come with his entourage to join our festival. Adaeze felt her stomach twist as she saw a group of visitors being led to the platform. At their head was a young man, perhaps a few years older than her. Prince Ifeanyi was dressed richly in a red and black traditional tunic decorated with a pattern of lion heads. He wore a red cap with a shiny feather, a sign of nobility. He had a polite smile on his face, though he looked a bit stiff, perhaps unsure of his welcome. Behind him came a couple of Obododike elders and guards. King Odum stood to greet them. "Welcome, Prince Ifeanyi," he said in a strong voice that carried across the square. "Welcome, friends from Obododike. Today, we set aside old quarrels and celebrate what we hope will be lasting friendship between our peoples." Prince Ifeanyi bowed respectfully. "Thank you, King Odum. My father, King Obiora of Obododike, sent his warm greetings and gifts of kola nuts and palm wine to honor this festival." At this time, one of his attendants held up a carved wooden bowl containing fresh kola nuts, another sign of respect and goodwill. In Igbo custom, presenting kola nuts is a gesture of hospitality and alliance. King Odum smiled and accepted the offering. The kola nuts would later be broken and shared among the elders of both kingdoms as a ritual of welcome. For now, the formalities continued. Adaeze realized with a sinking feeling that this moment might be when her father announces her betrothal to Ifeanyi. Sure enough, King Odum raised a hand for silence again and spoke. "Today is not only a day of harvest and celebration, but also a day of new beginnings for our kingdoms. As King of Ozochi, I wish to share joyful news with you all." He gestured for Adaeze to rise and stand beside him. Adeze's legs felt weak, but she stood and stepped forward. The crowd watched curiously. Many did not yet know what would be said. "It is my honor," King Odum proclaimed, "to announce the betrothal of my daughter, Princess Adaeze of Ozochi, to Prince Ifeanyi of Obododike." Gasps and cheers and murmurs rippled through the crowd at this announcement. Adaeze managed a strange smile as all eyes turned to her. Prince Ifeanyi stepped forward and bowed to her. She returned the bow with a nod of her head, trying to maintain grace even as her heart thundered in her chest. She dared not to look too upset or refuse in front of the people. From somewhere in the crowd, a sudden disturbance arose. It was subtle at first. One of the drummers missed a beat, and some people in the crowd shifted or gasped as if something was going on in their midst. Adaeze, from her raised position, scanned the crowd worriedly. She saw two palace guards pushing through a section of the crowd near the front. They seemed to be dragging someone out toward the open space. Adaeze's pulse quickened in fear. Had someone caused a scene in reaction to the announcement? The guards emerged into the open, holding a young man by his arms. The man struggled, his head bent down. Adaeze recognized with horror the simple lining shirt, the familiar coils of dark hair. It was Obinna. What is the meaning of this? King Odom demanded sharply, his smile vanishing. The music had stopped entirely now. All the villagers watched, and so did the Obododike visitors, confusion on their faces. One guard bowed quickly and announced, "Your Majesty, we caught this youth creeping close to the royal platform. When the betrothal was announced, he shouted something disruptive. We apprehended him for fear he might harm or insult on this day." Adaeze's blood went cold. "Oh, Obinna, what have you done?" she thought frantically. Obinna was now forced to his knees by the guards. He lifted his face, and Adaeze saw desperation and anguish in his eyes. He must have come to find her in the crowd and lost his caution upon hearing the betrothal news. Perhaps he had cried out in shock or protest without thinking, drawing attention to himself. Prince Ifeanyi looked bewildered by the interruption. Kodenneka stood halfway up, concern on her face, but King Odom's expression was dark with anger. "Who are you, boy?" the king thundered, glaring down at Obinna. "Why do you disturb our festival? What did you shout?"